Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is out, but it's seeing mixed reviews on Steam with over 38,000 reviews. And in my experience, I'm seeing two main arguments against the DLC, and I want to talk about them today, because one of them I agree with, and the other, not so much. It may even be a bit of a skill issue. Let's talk about it. Hello everybody, I am Jmulls of Jmulls Gaming, and the Elden Ring DLC is awesome. I'm over 10 hours into this thing, and it's so much fun. It's pretty much exactly what I wanted out of it. More Elden Ring. But it's also, well, harder than the base game, at least in my experience. And if you've played a lot of FromSoft games before, you are probably familiar with this concept that the DLC is generally harder than the base game. I haven't played too many FromSoft DLCs before, but the ones I have played, yeah, there's a bump in difficulty mostly. And Shadow of the Erdtree is no exception to this rule. But I tend to find, especially when it comes to Elden Ring, people are miscategorizing the game, its idea, its theme, and also the difficulty, and I want to talk about that today. But first I want to address that one other critique I've seen for the DLC that I actually agree with. See, there's two. One of them is that the DLC is too hard. The other one is about the PC port. Remember, these are Steam reviews. I am running a 4080 Super with a 14900 KF. My PC does not lack for power, and even I have been noticing some stutters and just performance hiccups here and there. Nothing too overwhelming on my machine, but I have noticed them. Couple that with Elden Ring being a game that is locked to 60 FPS if you don't mod the thing, in the year 2022 when the game came out, and even to the modern year. And yeah, I love FromSoft. They are one of my favorite developers of all time. Their PC ports absolutely deserve condemnation and critique. They get away with it because the games run at a minimum level and are really good. But games being locked at 60 FPS in the modern year is absurd, and there's no defense for it in my opinion. And if I'm seeing performance hiccups here and there, I can just imagine what it'd be like for everyone else. I used to play Elden Ring on a 1070. I am abundantly familiar with this game not being the most optimized game of all time. So that's the main critique that I agree with, and I can understand why people are upset in that regard, right? The other one, though, is the one that everyone is really talking about. That is the difficulty. This is the one where everyone's like made a video or made a hot take in regards to it, but personally, when it comes to Elden Ring, I think there's a bit of confusion about what Elden Ring really is and what FromSoft try to do with their games. Because I don't think the DLC is too hard. I don't think that at all. And this is from someone who spent 4 hours on Lion Dancer on stream. I don't think the DLC is too hard. It's just I think people forget what kind of game this is. Elden Ring is an open world game, and in my opinion, arguably the best open world game ever created. I used to not think that, but coming back to the game to prep for the DLC, I've fallen head over heels with this game. And as I peered beneath the layers of this game's design, I've come to appreciate nearly every aspect of it. The open world serves multiple purposes. Exploration, but also progression. There's two main kind of wall bosses in the DLC so far. At the beginning, you have the Lion Dancer in one dungeon, and you have Rolana in the other. But you have this entire open world section filled with mini bosses and whatnot in the middle. And if you go to a boss fight and you realize, hey, this is kind of overtuned for where I'm at right now, this is a bit too much for me, you have a lot of options on the table that you can choose to utilize. Because that's the type of game Elden Ring is. It gives you so many options to augment your power level or your playstyle that you can really make every encounter as hard as you want it to be. What I'm finding fun is not using summons and using my giant two-handed greatsword, because that's what I've been enjoying. But it may not be what you enjoy, and that's entirely fine, because Elden Ring is a game of options. It's a game in a series of games by FromSoft where the design philosophy is not about the difficulty. This is what I always tend to find people misconstrue or misunderstand in regards to FromSoft and their games, like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and especially Elden Ring. It's not a game about difficulty, and I don't think people like these games because they are difficult. The reason people enjoy these games, from my understanding and from my own experience, is that the true joy and brilliance of FromSoft is how they allow you to interface with that difficulty. They will will throw a singular challenge against you. For me in the DLC so far, it's been Lion Dancer. That was my big wall. I chose to bash my head against it until it fell over. But at certain points, I'm like, okay, well, let me go back to Renala and let me go change my setup. One attempt, I went from 60 strength to 69 strength. And then in my final attempt, I decided, you know what, screw it. Let's go 60 vigor, 60 strength, and put the rest into endurance, and I got that up to 32. So far in the DLC, I've hovered around that 105 to 120 level range, but I chose to do that. I also could have used summons, because the game provides a summon right outside the door of Lion Dancer, on top of the various summons that I have at my disposal that I could also choose to level up, and also the DLC provides the Scadu Tree blessings and fragments. It's a Sekiro power system, but in Elden Ring, on top of various items and greases that I could also use to augment my playstyle and my own personal power. That's the thing with Elden Ring. It's not about the singular challenge and difficult boss they put in front of you, but how you choose to react and respond to it. Because the game will give you plenty of options, my man. It'll give you plenty of them. And it doesn't care how you do it, the reward stays the same. It only cares that you find some way, somehow, to take out that boss, or to pass that challenge. That's what the game cares about. It's not about the fight itself, but how you respond to that challenge. It may sound small and minor, but it's pivotal to the design philosophy of FromSoft, and especially Elden Ring, because this game, more than all the other games before it, embody this design philosophy the best. Because there's another element to this. I went after the Lion Dancer really early on. I didn't explore the DLC that much. I went to the dungeon nearly immediately, like within the first hour of my play session. I could have then decided, hey, this guy's a little bit too strong for me. Let's go explore the rest of this map that I haven't uncovered yet, get some more Scadu Tree blessings, which make it so that I deal more damage and receive less damage, which is really nice. Again, it's a Sekiro power system, or Sekiro, and let me come back and then tackle this challenge. And if that's not the case, or if that's not good enough, I then have summons. I have the summon the game gives me. I can go respec into a different weapon archetype, or I can spec into some more incantations or sorceries. There's so many options available to me, because again, the game doesn't care how I overcome the challenge, just that I do. Just that I find a way to overcome this fight, because the fight's not gonna change, it's not gonna relent, it's not gonna weaken itself for me. I have to get stronger for it, whether that comes from skill or through technique or through the application of the tools in my kit. I can choose to build a house with a pencil and a pair of pliers, but that'd be weirdly inefficient, wouldn't it? I could do it, but it'd be way faster and more efficient to do it with a saw and nails and a hammer, now wouldn't it? I think there's a few circumstances involving Elden Ring specifically where this response kind of stems from. One, it's been a couple of years since Elden Ring came out, and you can imagine a lot of people, or even most people, went back to do a full playthrough or to get reacclimated with controls before delving into the DLC. They probably were on a massive break, were out of practice, came back to the game and got their butt whooped repeatedly, got angry, and made a bad review. Or they made a wildly overpowered build in the base game with a lot of levels and stats to it, and then realized that's not exactly applicable in the DLC that cares way more about Scadu Tree blessings than anything else. Because the DLC was designed in such a way, and Miyazaki and FromSoft have talked about this before release, that they wanted to make sure that even if you go into the DLC on a really overpowered character from the base game, you can still have a good and decent challenge ahead of you and still enjoy it. And that the game will still retain that sense of difficulty, even if you're wildly overleveled in comparison to the base game. It's a design feature, not a critique in my opinion. Well, anything can be a critique, but I don't think it's a negative. In fact, I think it's a positive. I went into this DLC around 110 level. I just beat Moog, and everything in the DLC felt as if I had to pay attention to it, but nothing felt overly BS. The Fire Wicked Man was kind of garbage in my opinion. He was just a giant sack of health with like 4 moves. Everything else that I've done sounds like the Ghost Fire Dragon, who's solidly okay. Everything else I've done has been really good. I don't think that the enemy spawns have been BS or lackluster. They remind me a lot of Dark Souls 1, to where I have to pay attention to every corner. I never felt overwhelmed, but the world didn't feel forgiving, which is what it should feel. It should feel unforgiving. It should feel dangerous. I have to check my corners. I have to be cognizant of the fact that this world is out to kill me. It didn't feel poorly designed, or just, we'll throw a bunch of mobs at you because lol, that's difficult, like it did in Dark Souls 2 for me. It felt like an extension of the base game with a bit more inspiration from, say, Dark Souls 1 and FromSoft's other games. In a lot of ways, it feels like a culmination of a lot of different design ideas and philosophies that FromSoft have attempted or cultivated over the years. And again, I'm only like 10 hours into this DLC and I'm already feeling this. Now, granted, maybe later on, I'm on Verlana. I've only put literally one attempt into it because I did it as a stream challenge for the 8K subspecial. Hey, shout out to that one, by the way. But I got it down to half health. I think FromSoft games especially can be really hard to get back into if you're out of practice. They require a bit of time just to get reacclimated with the pace, the flow, and the controls, and to put your mind back in that headspace to really overcome these trials and tribulations that the game puts in front of you. So if you're really out of practice and you're just diving into the DLC, especially if you've reacclimated yourself to a point of the game to where you're wildly overpowered and there's no threat, then you're out of practice as well. So going up against a giant challenge like Shadow of the Erdtree is, because it is a hard experience, it can just amplify those feelings of frustration. But I don't think that's a con of the game. It's one of the reasons I find these games so endearing and charming. Not every game will be for everybody. And I think that may be one of the biggest takeaways out of Elden Ring on the whole. Elden Ring was always going to be a big game in terms of its public reception. I don't think anyone anticipated it blowing up the way Elden Ring did. FromSoft games were always kind of niche beforehand, and then all of a sudden, it becomes this giant phenomenon. So you have a bunch of people who aren't acclimated to Elden Ring trying it out, or heavily cheesing the base game and kind of skirting around the difficulty in that way. Then you go up against the DLC where they put the difficulty front and center in front of you, and it's a case of you either have to get good at this or it may just not be for you, and that's entirely fine. Not every game is designed for everybody, nor should they be. I tend to find games that are designed to try and appeal to everybody end up appealing to no one. In a great way. You may be able to cast a wide net, but you're casting it in like an ocean with the depth of a puddle. What may be a critique or a problem for one person could be a strength for another. I view the difficulty and so far the balancing of the DLC to be a strength and to be something I like. Because at the end of the day, it's more Elden Ring. You climb to the summit in the base game, and now with Shadow of the Erdtree, you are looking up and saying, oh, I'm actually now at the base of another mountain. We gotta start climbing again? You may be really good and acclimated to that one mountain you just surpassed, but you got a new one, and it's full of new surprises and full of new tricks of the trade. Get good and overcome it. Or stay where you are, go back down the mountain. That's your choice at the end of the day. I'm also kind of surprised because a lot of these mixed reviews I'm seeing came out really early into the game's life. And like, let's be fair here, gamers are kind of known for being fully capable of just secluding themselves in their room and dumping ungodly hours into their favorite game, especially for a new release. But I also feel that when it comes to the Elden Ring DLC, I wouldn't say it's the biggest component here. I would say there's a segment of it, though, that I would attribute to what I call modern gamerism. This unyielding seeming desire and hunger for instant gratification. Elden Ring, at the end of the day, is an open world game where the design philosophy is to incentivize you to stop and smell the roses and to fully explore the world. You can mainline the bosses if you really want to. You will have a difficult time. You can take them down. Don't get me wrong here. You can take them down. It's gonna be way harder to do that, though, than if you had explored the world. That's why Lion Dancer took so long for me. I chose to tackle it really early on because I wanted to be able to say that I took it down that early on. And then I could go explore the rest of the world knowing that that giant wall and hurdle was behind me. Because that's what I wanted. I chose to do that. I could have gone and got up to like rank 4 Scattertree Blessing beforehand if I really wanted to. And then come back to Lion Dancer way down the line. I had that option always available to me. I chose to do it the way I did because that's what I wanted. Especially when it comes to the conversation surrounding Elden Ring and FromSoft games on the whole. Some people kind of make it a personality trait that they are really good at a video game or that they're really good at taking on these fights at a low level or in some really obtuse way. And there's a lot of other people out there that try and actively put down other people for utilizing in-game mechanics. And it can encourage a playstyle that may just not resonate with you and add a bunch of artificial difficulty on on top of the game that will just not click for you. Play the game you want to play. Play it the way you want to play it as well. In my first playthrough of Elden Ring, I used a whole bunch of stuff. I used incantations and sorceries and bleed builds, oh my, Dark Moon Greatsword, and I used summons, Mimic Tier primarily. I chose to do that my first playthrough. In my new playthrough, the one I've been playing in anticipation for the DLC, and now in the DLC, I haven't used magic really, outside of like Arts of War. I haven't used summons. I've been enjoying the game more because of that. But that's because of me. That's what I enjoy. May not be what you enjoy. Elden Ring is all about finding your own way that you enjoy to tackle these singular challenges posed in front of you. But for that idea to work, they have to be challenges. They have to be difficult. Because otherwise, the message just doesn't stick. It doesn't land. The reason I have called Elden Ring the ultimate power fantasy is because the game is difficult enough and puts these challenges in front of you so that when you become that powerful and ultimate, it feels good because you know how tough this game can be. So when you put in the work to find some way to really cheese it and get really powerful at it, it feels good. Whether that comes through a powerful spell, or through skill, or through raw stat allocation, it doesn't matter. And when it comes to Shadow of the Erdtree, I think the progression system and power balancing they have on display here is the best option we could have had. It doesn't care if you're overleveled in the base game. The game in the DLC cares way more about Skadu Tree blessings, so that any character you have can go in this DLC and still have a good time of it. You're not going to be overpowered anymore, but you can start again. In a lot of ways, I think Shadow of the Erdtree, from what I've played so far, is more Elden Ring, and that's what it should be. It's not a game designed to hold your hand, to guide you through it so that you can see everything or experience everything. Because at the end of the day, freaking hiccups, at the end of the day, Elden Ring is an experience. It's a world that you are dropped into for you to sift through the rubble and get out of it what you will. Experience what you will. Have a story that unravels because of your choices. You're not meant to experience 100% everything. It's not a checklist. It's not a to-do list where you have to do every quest to see everything. It's a game designed for you to take it slow, to enjoy the ride, to stop and smell the roses. And if you want to speed through it, you can, but expect the game to be challenging. More so than if you had explored the world, because you don't have the levels, you don't have the experience, you don't have the pacing you would had you explored the world. It's not a critique of this game, it's a feature, at least in my opinion. And with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And leave a comment down below with how you've been enjoying the DLC. Have you been loving it? Have you been hating it? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions. And also, let me know what build you're rocking, yeah? Are you like me, going in with a giant greatsword and a dream? You rocking reverse grip swords, perfume bottles, the milady? Yeah, are you tipping that fedora? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions. Stay safe, have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload and stream in the future. Until we meet again!